Alex Hormozi just pulled off one of the biggest book launches in history. Maybe you saw it, over $100 million in sales, over 3 million copies sold, and a Guinness World Record, all in 72 hours. Now, you might not be aiming for millions of copies, you might not be Alex Hormozi, but the principles that he used in that launch can apply to anyone successfully launching a book that wants to grow their business. So what I want to do in this video is break down the launch. Specifically, what are the 7 keys that made that launch successful, mistakes that were made, the whole thing. So we're gonna break it down, what worked, what didn't work, and what are the keys that you can take away to successfully launch your book. I'm Chandler Bolt. I've written several best-selling books, and I run a company called selfpublishing.com where we've helped thousands of authors publish successfully. I've scaled that company from 0 to over $75 million in the last decade. So I know business really well, and I know books really well, and I'm gonna break it all down in this video. Now you're gonna wanna stay to the end because I'll share 2 things. Number 1, how you can implement this with your book, and then number 2, what was the mistake that Alex made in this launch? Stick around to the end. I'll tell you. Let's dive in. And I'm not gonna lie, I think lesson number 5 is the key to the whole thing. So lesson 1, dig your well before you're thirsty. This might not be what you want to hear, but this is the undercurrent of what made this launch so successful. It's actually not been that long. If you look back, 4 years ago, Alex had 2,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. Nuts. Right? So he went all in and built his well before he was thirsty by building out a team, adding a ton of value through content. He invested in a way that most people won't. Let's just be real. Most people aren't willing to put out tons of content. Most people aren't willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on a media and content team. He did. So you've got all this goodwill and reciprocity. Early on, it was, I'm Alex, I have nothing to sell you. Well, now there's some things to sell, right? So you can love that, you can hate that. But the truth is the guy added a ton of value. And so by the time there was something big to sell, people were like, yeah, you've helped me so much that I will happily pay for this. And that's not even just in his content, that's also with his previous books, right? So if you think about $100 million offers, when that book came out, I mean, it was this explosion because it was really good, right? And then you think about $100 million leads, great book. So he's now built this expectation of like, hey, this next book, even though I think it's probably the worst hook in the whole series, like $100 million money models, what is that? It's confusing. Confused people don't buy. But there's so much goodwill that people are just like, yeah, I don't really know. I don't really understand it, but I'm going to buy it because I know it's going to be good. So the lesson here for authors is add value, add value, add value, and dig your well before you're thirsty, right? I think there's 2 specific ways he did that. Obviously the content, that's the big thing. That's kind of the key to the whole thing. But then he also had an affiliate army ready to promote. A lot of that is because of point 1, but he had tons of people promoting this launch that doesn't get talked about enough. That's a big key to this launch as well. Here's the takeaway for you as an author. Start now, add value, build an email list, maybe build a launch team, build a community, like get some early support behind the book that you're ultimately going to launch. Lesson 2, use paid ads the smart way. So this is another one of those kind of keys to this launch. So he mentioned on the live stream, he spent $4 million in ads in the few weeks leading up to the launch and self-liquidated $6 million before the book even launched. Okay, so that was obviously extremely profitable for him. I don't recommend that you YOLO into millions of dollars of ad spend. That's probably not the move, especially if this is your first book. But I think there's a few lessons that we can take away from there. Number 1, again, he was willing to go all in and make a massive bet. Most people aren't willing to do that. And then they wonder why they don't have outsized returns. So he did that, but then also they tested hundreds of ad iterations, right? So Hormozi's kind of key principle is just 10x the input. You might not fully 10x the output, but you're going to do so much work that it's going to succeed. He mentioned we launched hundreds of ad variations. He's like, I think it was like 500 ad variations. It broke the account. Like we hit our limit. Well, that's because he didn't just say, hey, let's come up with the 5 best ads ever. He said, let's come up with 500. And in those 500, we're going to find 5 really good ads. So there was the volume play, which I think was really smart. There was the big bet play, which was really smart. And then obviously none of this would have worked if he didn't have self-liquidating ad spend. So the way that he did this, he pre-sold the book as part of the funnel, and there was a one-time offer. So the takeaway for authors, you might not do this leading up to your launch, but you can certainly do this after your launch. We're doing this right now in the business. It's working really, really well, is do a self-liquidating book funnel. So either you're using it, so he had this launch event. Obviously, that was kind of the key to the whole thing. But then if you buy pre-buy the book, well, then you also get onto the Zoom live stream. So you get the behind the scenes of the launch event, like bonus. People pre-bought the book. I think they said they sold 72,000 copies of the book before the book launch day event had even happened, which is just kind of crazy. But if you're thinking about this for you on the back end of your book, maybe you're doing a free plus shipping funnel, or maybe you're doing some sort of self-liquidating offer with your book, running ad spend to that thing. Both of those can work really well. We even walk people through and teach people how to use Amazon ads. Those can work really well on platform using ads, the smart way to sell more books. Lesson 3, he self-published, so he had ultimate freedom with this book. Now, I know I run selfpublishing.com. You're probably thinking I'm just talking my own book here, but really this is a key to a lot of what he's done. You notice he self-published all 3 of his books. So you might ask the question, if someone at the highest level is self-publishing their book, why is that? Well, obviously that's because traditional publishers don't add a ton of value, but also, and I think this is why he does it, is he wants to leverage the book in a bunch of different ways that publishers wouldn't allow. So he wants to have bonus content, bonus chapters. He wants to give away the audiobook for free. With his most recent 2 books, he's published the audiobook on Spotify on his podcast. So it's just, I want to get this content in as many hands as possible. He couldn't do that. There would be so many restrictions if he traditionally published. Self-publishing allowed him ultimate freedom, launch date, launch process, fulfillment. He's doing all the fulfillment. Like, there's just so many things in the stack that he's able to do or change or customize or whatever else that he wouldn't be able to do if he was traditionally publishing, including owning the customer experience. So selling the books through his platform, now we've got their credit card on file, all of those things. So for authors, self-published, if you want to own your publishing, if you want to own your IP, if you want to own every part of the process, self-publishing is going to give you ultimate freedom. Lesson 4, this is a big one. He reframed the offer. This is, quite frankly, one of the smartest things I think he did as part of this live book launch. Now, he knew coming into this launch, there's kind of 2 groups of people. There's your beginner startup entrepreneurs. That's the majority of his audience. That's not who he was selling to. He was really selling to like the upper 1 to 5% because he wanted to sell bulk books. Okay. So if you think about kind of unwinding the strategy behind this, he said, well, the only way that we break this Guinness Book of World Records, which is, I think was previously 1.5 million in launch week or something. I think this was Prince Harry. He said, well, the only way to do this is to sell bulk books. This is not a new framework or new concept, right? Bunch of people have bulk book offers. It's like, well, if you buy 20, you get this. If you buy 100, you get this. If you buy 1,000, I'll come speak at your event. So it would be very easy for him to do that, right? And say, all right, there's all these stacks, pitch it. It's kind of complicated, it's kind of confusing, but he went up to a level that most people will not buy, which is 200 books, right? If he's trying to go mass market, maybe he did 50, but he intentionally picked 200 and made a massive offer on this, knowing that this is for the top 1%, top 5% of his audience, but then also knowing that that's going to alienate the whole rest of the audience. What he did, which I think was really smart, is he immediately handled the biggest objection first. He said, hey, big stack, big bonus stack, like, and this, and this, and this. And guess what? It's free. So if you guys are like, hey, Alex, you're selling this stuff, just get the free stuff. But for the people who want more, I've got something for you. Right? So he automatically kind of at the start disarmed the biggest bomb in the whole launch, which is that 95% of his people won't buy and can't buy the biggest thing. But then he also stripped all that out and said, I've got one thing. And so there's a big lesson here, confused people don't buy, and it's the paradox of choice. If you give people 17 options, they'll do none of them. So he specifically just gave one option, which I think, again, is overlooked and was kind of one of the big keys. But then he reframed the offer, which I think is both genius, hilarious, and I'll talk about at the end. Well, I think it's kind of dumb, but he turned book sales into donations. This is smart. He now reframed the whole frame of the launch. Is this launch, I want to get this book into as many entrepreneurs' hands as possible so you can donate 200 books. Okay, so really you're bulk buying 200 books, but it's now reframed as you can donate 200 books with a tax write-off. Because it's like, oh my gosh, is this like a 501c3? And it's like, no, this is a donation and it's a business expense. That's why it's a tax write-off. But you now reframe the offer. Instead of asking people to bulk buy books, which no one cares about, no one really wants that, it's get this amazing product and all you have to do is donate 200 copies. So if you're an author thinking about using this, I'll tell you within the next year or two, I bet you hundreds of people do this same exact thing. It's probably not going to work that well. And honestly, he's got so much goodwill built up that is the reason why it worked. But what you can replicate is create a super valuable thing and then give that thing away in exchange for people bulk buying books, right? And so instead of going one-to-one, you go one-to-many, kind of the Dave Ramsey model. He'll sell into schools or sell into churches. Well, then I sold one person and that's hundreds of people, right? This is kind of the same concept with bulk books. That's why so many people do it. Not to mention you kind of have to do that to get on the New York Times bestseller list. So you can reframe the offer and give something of value that comes with a bulk purchase of books. Lesson 5, I think this is the key to the whole thing. He used influence to a T. Okay, so if you've never heard of this book called Influence, in my opinion, it's one of, if not the best marketing book and psychology book of all time. The book is called Influence by Robert Cialdini, and there's so many core principles in that he used. He used scarcity. He used urgency. He used social proof. He used reciprocity. He used commitment and consistency. He stacked value through the process, right? So it's almost comical. And honestly, I think in some ways a little bit too complex. Like there were so many things that I found myself watching it being a little bit confused and a little bit bored. Because it's like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of stuff here, right? But he overwhelmed with value. And so that it's like, hey, you'd be crazy not to get the book or not to buy this big bulk thing. But if you think about Robert Cialdini's influence, it's the psychology of persuasion. You need to build all of these elements into it. And I had a friend, Kurt Malley, who did a whole breakdown on this. I thought it was genius, just kind of like how he used it and how much he used it and when he used it throughout the process. But there's social proof. So right away out of the gates, we've sold X thousand copies of previous books. Hey, hold up. How many people are on this live stream? 113,000 people. Wow. Right? I think he even brought the Guinness World Record person out there. So it's like, okay, we're going for a Guinness World Record. So you're kind of setting the stage. There's a pattern interrupt. And then all throughout the rest of the launch, sprinkled in all these things. So reciprocity, that was obviously built in the years prior. So everyone's showing up with reciprocity, but he used it. He said, if I've ever brought value to you, well, then I would love for you to consider doing this thing. That's also weaves in commitment and consistency. Commitment and consistency says, if I make a commitment previously, I want to be consistent with that commitment, right? So if someone tells you they're going to do something, we feel a need and compelled as humans to follow through on that thing. This is also like identity politics. So if I have told everyone that I'm a Republican or a Democrat for years, well, I feel like I need to be consistent with that previous public commitment. And so commitment and consistency, really powerful tool, and it can be used, and he did use it. It was like, if I've ever brought value, well, then do this thing. You're kind of giving people something to live up to. Then he brought it home with these two principles, which is scarcity and urgency. Now, scarcity, he did an awesome job of this. This was a couple slides, and it was straight up, no BS, but very well crafted and worded. He's like, here's our conversion rate on past launches. Here's how many books that we sold previously. Here's how many people we had registered for this event. We only have 5,000 bundles printed. And to be honest, this is disarming. This is like a classic Hormozi thing. It's like, to be honest, I didn't print enough. Ha, ha, ha. Right? So you're kind of giving them a reason why. That's another influence principle, is you give people a reason why that something is that the way that it is, or the reason why you're doing something or asking them to do something. So he gave the reason why. It's like, oh man, we undersold or we underprinted these bundles. So we only have 5,000. And if we do the math here, this will likely sell out during this live stream. So now there's scarcity. There's a feeding frenzy, kind of chum in the waters. It's like people are getting all kinds of crazy. And then we move into urgency, which is you got to do this by the end of the live stream. Well, now there's urgency. And so now it's not just like, because if you just use scarcity, you might say, oh, well, what's the count? How many you got left? And then I will adjust accordingly. But now there's also a deadline. So I've got to buy by the end of the live stream. That was a big component that led to a bunch more people buying. And then I'll get into some of the other things of how he extended that later in the video. So for authors, use the fundamentals. Read the book Influence. If you haven't read this book, you got to read it. It's one of the best marketing books of all time. Use those fundamental principles in your launch. Number 6, I kind of stole the reveal on this one earlier, but I think this is a really important point to double down on, is he only had one real purchase option. So confused people don't buy. Don't ask people to do multiple things. Don't ask them to buy the book and review the book and share it. Ask them for a review, right? Because then they're going to buy the book to leave a review. So he didn't just try to sell a bunch of single books, which he's done in the past and has even done some bulk stuff. He sold the bundle, right? So one option, price anchored really well, that's going to move the needle. So if you're trying to incorporate this in your book, think beyond the single sell, right? Can you create packages or bundles that drive momentum and singular calls to action that get people to actually do the thing that you want them to do? Final lesson, lesson 7, the live launch. Okay, so he did a 9-hour live event. And not only that, but it extended into multiple days. This is kind of a webinar or a live launch format. Now, you've maybe heard on this channel or on my podcast, this works really well. We brought on Amy Porterfield. She did this. She had a 7-figure launch where she used the book launch to then sell a book bundle. And that bundle came with a ticket to a virtual live event. That live event was a 7-figure launch event, right? Same thing with Cody Sanchez, same things with other people. And he did that same thing. So, I mean, if you buy the bundle, it includes tickets to this live event, this virtual live event. You better believe that that's going to be another massive revenue pop in the next 90 days or whenever that event is. The live launch, really effective. It's also really effective to tie that in with a live event. So kind of as a lead in to a virtual live event, especially if you have kind of like a big audience or international audience or all that stuff. And then he didn't just do a 2-hour webinar. He did a 9-hour live event. Well, guess what? That means you've just got more surface area, right? You got people who are hanging out. He had the urgency. He brought on guests. So he did the big pitch right up front. So the offer is out there. Then he brought in guests and interviews. So then it's like objection handle, new guest. And so I'm keeping it lively and I'm also pointing back. And then there was a live counter of books being sold. So it just continues the momentum for that full 9 hours. Again, I think this is what really sets him apart. He's just willing to do more than most people. And guess what? There's outsized outcomes that happen from that. Who would have thought? You work harder, the outcomes get bigger. And so he just did that. And then he didn't advertise this ahead of time that I could tell. I think that's smart, strategic. There's a reason why he didn't do this. But then the next day said, oh my gosh, that was so crazy. Breaking news, we're going live again. And I think they had maybe even already broke the Guinness World Record. And so what you would think, and what I thought when I saw this, is, oh, they're just doing an encore. Like they're going to put it on YouTube Live and just play the one from yesterday. He's like, no, we're going live. And he got back on for multiple hours on Sunday. I mean, it's almost comical at this point. I got people who are like, hey, they're still live. And then they came back on Monday and did another live session. So, I mean, it just goes to show, you know, if the audience is big enough, like if you got a small audience, maybe it doesn't make sense. But even still, like going the extra mile, they kept moving books all the way into Monday. And my guess is they extended that bonus with integrity, because if you say, hey, this ends at the end of the live stream. Well, if the live stream just keeps going for multiple days, and it's kind of like, okay, we told you it ends at the end of the live stream, right? And so I would assume they used that to kind of extend the bonus throughout those couple days, which obviously help more with sales. So if you're an author thinking about launching your book, use a live stream, use a webinar, either to pre-sell or as a launch event. It's one of the most effective mechanisms to sell anything. You use it in a similar way you can use it to launch books. So that's it. Those are the 7 keys that Alex used for over $100 million launch. Pretty timely since it's $100 million money models. The 7 are: he built his well before he was thirsty. So he built an audience. He ran ads in a smart way, placed a big bet. He leveraged self-publishing. He reframed the offer, stacked a ton of value and used influence by Robert Cialdini. He limited the purchase options, and then he launched live. Most authors think that a book's the end product, and in reality, the launch is one of the best ways that you can grow your business, right? Launching a book is one of the best ways to grow your business. Obviously, Alex believes that. That's why he's done it, and not only done it, but done it multiple years in a row with big launches. So if you want to write and publish your book, I've created a top secret training on how to do it. So click the link in the description of this video. I call this the $7 million business card. So for me, this book right here has brought in over $7 million in sales in the last 12 months, tens of millions of dollars overall. If you want to learn the key principles on how to do it yourself, so how I've done it and also how Alex has done it, click the link watch that training and let's put together a plan for your book. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Let me know what I missed in the comments. Did I miss something? Do you disagree? The one thing that I think is kind of funny is the whole donation thing. I think it's like, you think you're donating to some nonprofit or whatever. I don't know. That's maybe the mistake that he made, or maybe the thing that I would do differently. It obviously worked. I think the real thing is charging people shipping on the back end and doing the one-on-one shipping. I think it's smart. It's a smart business play. If you think about it, it's like if you're shipping 200 copies individually, which I just assumed, that part was a little confusing with lunch. I just assumed like, hey, he's going to ship you a bulk box of 200 books, which I think most people don't want that. He knows that. So then he enabled them to send those books to other people. They just cover shipping. Honestly, don't know how I feel about that. On one hand, I see it from the business owner side of things, which is, hey, it's good. Like that's $2,000 that you would have to pay in shipping. On the other hand, it's like, hey, you're sending them a free book. Most of the time, people are like, hey, here's my link, just claim one of them. It's not that much of an ask to get them to cover some shipping. Overall, crazy launch. You got to have respect for it. You might not like it. You might disagree with it. You might not like him, but you can't not respect it, okay? And I say can't not. All right, you can't not respect it. It was an incredible launch. Shout out and kudos to Alex and team for all the work in the process. So hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Check out my training, and I'll see you in the next video.